what are the things that cause athletes to get into bad deals? What Craig talked about was ego.
Welcome to Beyond the Game, Wealth Mastery for Athletes. I'm Kris Benson, private equity real estate investor, and I'm joined by 9-year NFL vet Alec Ogletree. Beyond the Game is a podcast where we will provide a playbook for financial growth both on and off the field. Join us each week as we'll have in-depth conversations with other pro athletes as they walk us through how they've created wealth beyond the game, both on and off the field. They're going to share their triumphs, lessons learned, and setbacks along the way so that you don't make the same mistakes. Join us. I think you're going to have a lot of fun.
Welcome to Beyond the Game, episode 12. This is a special episode. Alec and I are doing what we've learned in the first 12 episodes.
Reflection day.
Reflections. That's a good way to think about it.
Reflection day.
So look, I think as a podcast, our hope is that there are specific actionable items that you as the listener can take and apply in your own life. And I think as Alec and I talked through the first 11 episodes, I think that we've published, we said I think it'd be helpful if we went back and rehashed some of the key points for people to mull on. So that's the goal of today. You're just going to get Alec and I, no guest, and the thought process is we'll talk through some of the things that we took away from our first guests who were so gracious with their time. Alec, number one, you're wearing the Ravens jersey. This is after they lost, if you're watching this. Yeah. That's one of our guests. That's his brother.
Big Drew. Yeah, nah. I actually think my wife bought this for her dad, but it got hung up in my closet for some reason. I was like, you know what? Let me wear it.
For those of you guys just listening, Andrew is Alec's brother-in-law who played for the Ravens this year, and Alec is repping his jersey right now. Tough finish for the Ravens. But that being said, it's a tough go. Alec, so with the first 11 episodes, this is the thing that stood out to me, and maybe I'd love to start here, which is at a very high level, I think if we're talking about mastering wealth creation, the first thing that stood out to me that one of our guests, Craig Brown, talked about, which was understanding your burn rate. And I think this is applicable athlete, non-athlete, right? This is how I try to live my life too, is what does it cost you to live your life today at the lifestyle that you currently have, the houses you currently live in, how much you're going out to dinner every week, if you're paying for other people, what all that comes out to on a monthly basis. And what Craig talks about is that just being your burn rate and that being your starting point of, okay, let's walk through an example. If your burn rate is 30 grand a month, right? So you spend $360,000 a year in just expenses, your mortgages, groceries, all in. Well, you got to have enough investments at a reasonable rate of return to say, hey, I can support that $36,000 or that $30,000 a month for the rest of my life, and I never need any more income. Is that a way you thought of it when you played? Were you ever trying to get to a number?
I would say I was always trying to, mainly for me was remain like debt free in a sense. So in most cases, I would just pay cash for it, right? Like when I do stuff, like I bought a home or whatever, like I'll just pay cash for it, right? Not necessarily saying that I did, like I knew I had to pay taxes and all that stuff like that. So like you're still owing debt, but like to owe debt, like to the banks and all that stuff like that was like something that I didn't really want to be a part of because I didn't understand it. I was, like a first time home buyer for the most part. So it was like the easiest thing for me was to make this investment into this home. And I will say I didn't originally think of it as like an asset versus something that's a liability, right?
Yeah. You mean your house,
yeah,
like when you bought a house.
Like I didn't necessarily think it was an asset at first, but the more I kind of kept doing my research and just kind of learning about real estate, I realized I'm like, oh, this is an asset where like you could do a bunch of different things with it. Obviously it can generate income for you and allow you to you know do other things with that asset to leverage it as well. To go and borrow money and do all this stuff like that. So through the years, it took me, a lot of trial and just tribulation, just kind of figuring out like, oh man, I can actually use this is an asset versus a liability. And to your point of what Craig said, just understanding that burn rate was, I didn't want to, I didn't want to owe too many people that like I didn't need to owe. Like I didn't need to create a debt for whatever reason because
Yeah, you didn't want to create more
yeah, I
overhead.
didn't want to create a lot of overhead for myself, and it like I said, it took the research, doing studying, just kind of understanding like, man, I can't do this. Like it's not gonna work. This is it's just too much, right? And to that point of what you said about Craig, Anthony Tolliver that was on, he was like, oh, well, not Anthony, but I meant Ronnie Brown. He was like, yeah, man, just it's okay to say no to a deal. Like everything is not good for you. And like you said, creating that overhead and understanding what's your burn rate and what you can and cannot do is a big thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think look, and this is true whether you make 20 million bucks a year or 20 grand a year. It's just numbers, right? And I think when we think about wealth and wealth creation, the goal of wealth, in my opinion, and you can certainly argue with me here, is wealth is a tool to create freedom. So when you're done, like as an athlete, when you're done, you have the choice to do whatever you want. You want to work? Great. You want to go be an announcer or coach in the game? Great. You want to go get into business? Great. You can do that too, but you can do that because you have the financial freedom you've created. And in my opinion, it's as easy as saying this is how much that I burn to live the way I do, and this is the investments I have that create income to support that. And if you don't have enough investments to cover your burn rate, well, then you got to reduce your burn rate. I mean, or you got to increase your investments. If you got the cash to do it, then maybe you increase the investment. So that was one I thought was just a good nugget from Craig. Just staying with Craig and Alec, we talked about this with your story was, we asked Craig, like, what are the things that cause athletes to get into bad deals? You just mentioned Rennie saying, like, look, there are sometimes it's a good idea to say no. Like, I don't understand. I don't want to get involved. But what Craig talked about was ego and the ego of the athlete, right? Like, you guys are the man. Like, you've been the man since high school. Everything you touch turns to gold. Look at me. And, so a lot of that is creates blindness around doing the appropriate due diligence on an investment to make sure that you're not getting involved with something that you're going to regret moving forward.
Yep. No, it's definitely very easy to do that. Like I said, for myself, I just think about the deal with when I was like, talking about the wear, the cloth, whatever. I mean the suits, yeah. Oh, dang, I'm drawing a blank on all the stuff. What it goes to show you, like, don't do it. Right there. But I had I just thought I could do it. Like I said, I didn't do the research to like go back and ask these people whatever. I'm just like, yeah, I've been getting to know him for the last couple of years here. Like, I know this guy, whatever, and he seemed cool, like, all this stuff. But turns out, dude, just basically not who he said he was. Right? He's a fraud.
Yeah, he stole $250,000 of your money.
Just like that, like it's gone. And in my circumstances, yes, I was blessed enough to earn more money, but to somebody that's not earning that amount of money, or being in the league long enough to kind of recover from some stuff like that, like that's detrimental to them. Like, so I said like lightly, but it is a real thing because some people don't recover from that.
And Alec, is that just to kind of counteract the ego and like, I can do it? Is it just awareness that it's there? Or is it just having good people around you who are going to say, hey, Alec, that's a stupid idea. You have no idea how to launch a clothing line. Don't give this guy $250,000.
Yeah. I mean, I think it definitely is a little bit of both, right? So in my case, my wife was right there telling me, don't do that shit, right? And me being me being myself, being like, it's okay. Like, I've been getting to know him, like, this, that, and other. Like, it went on and did it anyway, right? And again, it turned out bad. So, I think there's always somebody or something that kind of tells you right or wrong, like yes or nay. I believe in all of us, right? And it's got to you have a choice to either say yes, I'm going to do this, or no, I'm not going to do this, and you kind of have to live with the results of it. And does it what if, especially if it goes bad, you still have to be able to be like, okay, that was something I can learn from. Like, that was a mistake. Sure. Yes, I understand that we all make mistakes, still make mistakes to this day, right? But at the same time, it's going to make me think about, like, okay, I'm going to do a little bit more research, just keep a little more digging before I actually say yes or no to whatever the situation is, and try to get the right information, right? It's out there, and I believe the information is out there. It's just a matter of like how you go and find it, and do you really want to go seek it, right?
And Alec, you're hitting the nail right on the head with another great bullet point, or a summary that I think I would take from all of our guests who've been successful in that wealth creation post playing days, which is none of this happens automatically for you, right? I mean, this isn't like the league in the NFL, and we talked to a couple of Major League Baseball players and a couple of NBA guys. There isn't anything set up where this is going to just happen. You have to have intention in creating that long-term wealth, whether that's through a financial advisor, putting a team of people around you who can help educate you. But I think with all of our guests, the thing that stood out was there was a guy or a gal or somebody who put their arms around them, or they went and sought them out. Like, we talked with Ronnie Brown, who, he knew that he didn't understand anything. Like, he didn't understand how banking worked. And so he sought that out when he was in the league. And this is something you talked about, right? Is like the excuse you hear from a lot of guys is there's not enough time. And I think you asked that question to almost everybody, and everybody said that's BS. Like, you make time for what you want to do. And I think this is one of those things where, like, you have to make time and you have to be intentional about seeking out the education of, hey, how am I going to make this wealth last?
You do. You have to be, like you just said, you have to be very intentional about what you're doing. And, yes, it's tough being an athlete, like, and doing all that stuff, dealing with whatever you got to deal with, right? But at the same time, you got the same 24 hours as the next person, right? You got the same amount of, like, it's nothing different. Yes, you get to go and do this over here, but yeah, you could spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, a day, a night, just something, kind of changing your thought process, not putting all your eggs in the basket of playing football or whatever sport you're doing. That this is going to last me the rest of my life, because you're going to stop playing at some point. You're going to stop playing. You might do intramural stuff,
but they're not paying you for that,
They're not paying you for that. They're not paying you for that, right? So
I think the other thing that people touched on too with that intentionality is finding a mentor. I mean, we heard this over and over. Kevin Minter stood out to me, where it was his older brother, and he was fortunate that, like you talked about your wife, being your counsel on that clothing line deal. With Kevin, it was his brother coming to him saying, hey man, you got to start thinking about what are you going to do with this cash that you're making, so that you have that freedom that you want when you're done. And I think that can go the other way too. Craig talked about this, ego and then love. That older brother in Kevin's case was a great mentor, pushed him the right direction. In Kevin's case, he went out, bought a bunch of joint chiropractic centers, which are creating passive income for him. But that can go the other way too, where you have loved ones bringing you things that aren't in your best interest. And, Craig Brown talked about that being another hurdle for athletes where family members, brothers, sisters, cousins, people that they love bring them things to invest in that aren't necessarily a great deal. And they do it out of that love. And, ultimately the outcome is bad. Was that something you saw a lot of, like, especially, I guess, when you first got in the league?
I mean, I've definitely had people saying, we should do this and do that, whatever, right? And for me, if it didn't deal, like, I was one of those, if it didn't, like, have anything to do with football, like, I wasn't, like, I wasn't really entertaining it for the most part, right? Like, because I was trying to be the best, I'm like, man, I'm doing what got me here. Like, I'm gonna deal with this. Like, yes, you always gonna think about it, like stuff doing stuff off the field, but for the most part, I was like, man, I need to figure out how I'm about to, start and make this play, this third down. I was all about all of that stuff right there. And then in the off season is like where I spend most of my time, not most of my time, but some part of my time, kind of investing into trying to learn stuff, right? Going to different meetings, going to different events, whatever the case may be, to try to learn some of that stuff. And if a deal or something came up, I would try to handle it then, because once the season rolled back around, I was like, I'm cutting it off. Like, don't ask me nothing about anything. Don't ask me anything about that, during the season. And I kind of wish, like, I don't think it's wrong to do that. I think that if we are able to grow in a sense of thinking, as the show title, beyond the game, at an earlier age, like, and you understanding, like, okay, realistically, like, the chances of me making it 10 plus years or whatever the case may be, even just making a second contract is very low, right? And so for a lot of guys, like my case, I would say guys that get drafted early and all that stuff like that, like, yes, you make a significant amount of money, but at the same time, that money that you made up front right there not going to last you if you don't have the right habits and kind of all that stuff like that going on, right? And it'll be over with real quick. Even some people that got drafted early, like, they lasted 2 or 3 years, and the team was like, okay, yeah, we're just going to eat that cost. Like, it's nothing for them to eat that cost, right? But you thinking,
Yep.
you Mr. Big Shot, that you gonna be here forever and ever. It's like, nah, dude.
Till they draft your position
They
next year.
just drafted the guy's about to take your position yesterday, right?
It's Alec. It's funny. Like in it, I think you pointed to it, which is it's just about starting earlier. And every guest who came on, I think, other than maybe Clint Bowling at the end because his dad was the CFO. Like he was a financially savvy guy. Other than that, everybody else was in the same boat you were, which was like, I have no idea. So I'm 21, 22, getting drafted in whatever sport that I'm playing. I'm getting this check and I don't know what to do with it. And I think a big part of it, back to the ego thing, and this is true in the professional world as well as the professional athlete world, is that it's okay to reach out to people and say, I don't know. And that's a hard thing to get over, especially with you guys in the locker room. You're surrounded by guys who have, Alec Ogletrees who've played for 10 years, right? Like guys who've been in the league for a while that they can reach out for that mentorship. Clint Bowling from the Bengals talked about that was, he went to the older guys in the room who seemed to have figured out and said like, hey, what should I be doing? And I think that's a big step. And I guess my last point on that is it doesn't have to be more complex than just understanding, like you said, this isn't forever. And what can I do today to put me in a better position 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people think of right now, like, and yes, I get it. You got to be in the moment and all of that stuff, but being in the moment doesn't mean there isn't a future. Like, it's like, okay, it's still coming. Like, I get it. You got to be in the moment, whatever this or whatever, but it's okay to set yourself up for the future, even if it's not yourself. Like somebody coming behind you, luckily you're able to have kids and whatever pass the genes, whatever you leave it, you can't take it with you when you're going at the end of the day, right? And so if it's something that you can do to kind of, help set yourself up along with not even just yourself, your family, whatever the case may be, to for the future, I think that's great as well,
Yeah.
And
I think the other thing, Alec, like that stood out to me from all the guests too, especially some of our earlier guests, like your brother-in-law Andrew, Mac Brown was a guy like that, Rennie Curran was a guy like that, who they were not 10-year guys in the league, although Andrew's piecing together that career now, but he's done it across multiple teams, right? They weren't first-round draft picks coming out. TA was that, our first guest. I think he played for 13 teams over like a 10-year career or something like that. And I love the mindset of all these guys who just think about, look, just because you're saying no, it means I get a yes from somebody else. Like it's the mindset of just continued, well, I'm good enough and I'm going to make it happen somewhere else. And that strength, I think, applies to everything. And that could be wealth creation, investing, your life after football. But the idea that, look, I've been cut 10 times and I still believe I have what it takes and I'm going to get a yes. Anthony Tolliver talked about like he'd been on 11 teams. He didn't look at that beginning cut 11 times. He looked at it as, dude, I got 11 yeses.
I say you're right. And like you said, the perspective of, how you view things is very key. And like you said, the belief that you have to have in yourself first and foremost has to be at an all-time high. Because if you don't believe in yourself, like nobody else is going to believe that you can do it. Like they're expecting you to not do well, but that's
especially in the world that you guys live in.
Yeah, I mean, they pay you a lot of money to be there, and it's something that you did well. If you're able to make it, you did something well. And you have to keep that belief, but it definitely can get tough as you go through life. Just anything that you do, just the wear and tear. The older you get, the more you like, man, that was so stupid that I did. You start learning different things, and your goals and stuff kind of evolve too. As you grow older, when you 21, 22, you're not thinking about, okay, I'm 30 something now. Like, I need this insurance plan to be the right way. At 22, you're like, I can recover like, it's nothing, right? And so, it's just thinking long term, versus just that short term.
And that's hard. That's hard to do when you're 20.
It's very hard.
And this is me in my life. Like I've tried to think about my life in 10-year blocks, right? And let's argue that the first 20 years don't count. Because you and I, from 0 to 10 and from 10 to 20, we're just kind of growing up. We don't really know who we are. We don't know anything yet. But then 20 to 30, some maturity happens, right? You start to figure out who you are, who you think you want to be. And then 30 to 40, now you kind of got a handle of like, all right, this is who I am and how I show up in the world. And what I like to think about, and professional athletes live this, is reinventing yourself every 10 years, right? And so, 40-year-old Kris is going to think different than 50-year-old Kris and 60-year-old Kris. And, you guys are forced to do it, right? If you're lucky, from 20 to 30, you're a football player or you're a professional athlete. But not too many guys past 30 are professional athletes. So you have to reinvent yourself. And I love this idea of, if you think of our lives, we have 6 10-year blocks in our life, right? If we're counting 0 to 20, let's assume we live to 80 years old. Well, those 6 10-year blocks, what if every 10 years you reinvent yourself? At the end of life, when you're keeping score, it's not going to be about how much money you made, but if you have unique experiences in each one of those 10-year blocks, you can look back and say, wow, that was a hell of a ride.
No, I agree. It's, you know, life is short as it is, and we all here trying to make it and figure out ways to better ourselves, better our situations and conditions and stuff like that. And so it's always fun to, like you said, hear the stories, just kind of how people go through things like that. Like even with easily talking about just growing up being out basically like on his own at a young age and living. He was like, what he said, I lived my life early on, and now he thinks differently. Now he's able to not get so caught up in the limelight stuff, but actually doing stuff that better his family, just better him mentally. Like he spoke on, just getting the help mentally and being in the right headspace, because in order to do something, you need to have a clear mind and understand what you're doing, and not just out here all over the place and running wild. So yeah, no, it's
Yeah, I think the thing that gets lost, and what I've learned from having the interactions that we've had with guests is like, look, we're all people, right? And life's hard, right? There's stuff that like Dominique easily, you talk about his growing up stories, like he had a tough go to start his first 10 to 20 years of life. And I think all of us have these struggles, whether you're, a Pro Bowl football player, or if you're just a CPA working 9 to 5, everybody's got stuff. And I think we focus a lot on the podcast about wealth, right? And I think it's a tool. It's a tool to help, but it doesn't make you happy. I mean, Alec, both of us have been fortunate to make some money, and I can tell you, making money doesn't make me happy. I like the freedom it affords, but there. I know lots of really wealthy guys that are miserable, and I think when we're young, we always think like, but when I get here, then like stuff's going to be great, right? And maybe for you, it was like, when I get my second NFL contract, everything's going to be great. And then you get there and you're like,
yeah. I mean, it's like I said, your goals change, as you grow. Like you just view things
yep.
differently. Like no matter who you are, whether you making millions or whether you're not, like everything you do, as you grow in this life, you just look at stuff differently, a little bit differently than you did 10 years ago. You just honestly, you just be thankful that you were able to live through those times, whether they hard times, all that stuff like that, and be here to try to give back, give that wisdom, and kind of teach somebody behind you, that's coming along. Like yes, like I know where you're at. I understand your struggle, right? Like I get it. Like I promise you, I get it. I understand. But if you were able to take some of the takeaways from whoever your mentor, your whoever it is that kind of can help you grow and seek that wisdom, like to me the sky's the limit with the potential of what somebody can do in this lifetime.
How do you, maybe this is a good way to land the plane. How do you think about, so you're 31, are you 32? How old are you? So I'm 10 years ahead of you. I'll be 44. I'll be 44 in March. Yeah, in a month. So how do you think about, and you retired last year, so how do you think about 32 to 42-year-old Alec? Like you got young kids, but you're right in that transition, right? I was a football player. Now I'm a dad. How do you think about that next 10 years?
I think the next 10 years, I'm trying to go chase that bag, man. I'm chasing that bag out here. No, I'm just, no, for me, it's like I still have a desire, a hunger to grow and learn more. Like I said, stuff that I was already kind of doing outside of football world, in terms of like what is real estate, it's private equity, it's all kind of different little things, right? So right now, to me, I find myself just kind of in this grind mode of, just seeking as much information as I can, from different people that I meet throughout my life. Like being in the NFL has afforded me the opportunity to be in like some of the rooms that the normal person most likely probably won't get ever a chance to go to, right? And so I don't take it lightly in the sense of like, well, I'm just here to goof off or whatever. It's like, no, like I'm here to learn something and, I want to understand like how can I grow as a person in this world. And, some of the things that, you get into is like people just already see the football. They just think all you about football is like, nah, man, like I like talking about real estate. I like talking about finance. I like talking about having procedures or whatever the case may be. Like, and I think if we able to do that as athletes, you can you can do it. I would say that most of the time the athlete just doesn't get a chance to really kind of talk about it or express that, or even other people that don't even understand. It's like, dude, this dude is smart as hell. Like,
Yeah, they see one
they see
facet.
one facet. You just see the Sunday, which is great. But the rest of the time, this dude, he over here training all day. Then he gets done training, and he goes spend 2 hours reading a book up on the market or something like that. Like, he's just gaining that knowledge, right?
Is that enough, Alec, for you? Like, is the learning enough to fulfill the competitive juice that you spent the previous 10 years executing with?
Well, I think it's part of it is learning, and part of it is like people not really respecting or respecting the fact that you are in that space, right? Like, or like people that kind of they don't believe you can do it, right? It just kind of blows their mind when like they hear of an athlete, he's a billionaire, he's doing this, he's invested in this, he's in this field or whatever. Like, most of the people, you always hear the story of guys going broke or something after they're done playing or whatever. What you say that stat was? It was like 65, 75% of players go broke 2 years after. And
Yeah, I think it was when Sports Illustrated did an article. It was a little bit older. The article's dated, but I think it was like 70+% of NFL players go broke within 3 years of leaving the
yeah,
league.
and so we need to, I feel like with this podcast and Beyond the Game, that's the hope of this, is to kind of change that narrative and drop that number. Like, that's why we have these guys on, kind of share their stories, share some of the things that they've been through, and hopefully somebody can take that and learn from it and grow and be like, okay, I heard that happened to him too, right? It's that
And hopefully reach out. Like these guys are like go get some of that
go get it.
wisdom. That 32-year-old Alec has that 22-year-old Alec didn't. I mean, I think that's what we hope. Well, look, I think that's a good place to kind of land the plane with this episode. We'll circle back with you after maybe the next 10, give you our lessons learned on that one. What I would say is if you can subscribe and leave a review, it really helps the podcast find other people. We're grateful that people have started listening to it, and it's been a lot of fun for us. So we will catch you on the next episode.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Y'all enjoy. Thank you for tuning in to Beyond the Game. Please like, subscribe, comment on your favorite platform. It helps others find the show.